Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer gameplay. And this time around, it's a friendly 1v1 against a friend of mine, Zach Sane. Myself playing as the High Elves against his Norscans. And both of us were just kind of messing around, trying some experimental builds. And that's what we kind of came up here. So I decided to sort of meme it up and try a bit of a Phoenix Guard Doom Blob. And so for my lord, I'm rolling with Alaria the Radiant. Not much to be said for her. On foot like this, she's a pretty tough individual to snipe. She's got pretty monstrous melee stats, especially for caster. Shield Stone of Isha grants an AoE physical resist buff, making these Phoenix Guard insanely tanky. 42% missile resist or physical resist is pretty nuts. She also does have Earthblood as well as Frost Protection. We also do have the Boon of Isha granting our boys magic damage and immunity to psychology. Very valuable. A lot of Norscan units do have physical resist, so this is definitely nifty. And of course, the Terror from the Mammoths could be a game changer. Sword of Avalorn for the heals, and then Arcane Conduit, of course, for extra one's magic. As well as Shield of Saffron, of course, Life Bloom for those peripheral benefits. Alongside her, we do have two nobles. These guys are both mounted on horses, providing me with that anti-large AP, high mobility sort of force. And these guys can definitely do a lot of damage. Obviously, they're not going to take on, say, a mammoth, but against lower end stuff like Fimir, like Skin Wolves, like Wulfric on a chariot or a horse, or Throg, they'll do much, much better. For our core, we do have 3 units of Phoenix Guard. Not much to be said for them. One of them is the Regiment of Renowned Keepers of the Flame. Now this, as you might see, is a very narrow front line for what is a very wide back line. And I was kind of gambling on the fact that I would be able to keep at least a few of these archers alive, and that I'd be able to protect them somewhat effectively with these Silver Helms, of which we've got 2 units. Silver Helms with shields, bit of a budget cap, but very effective against dogs, hounds, that sort of thing. Finally, 5 archers. Not much to be said. They're just archers. They're here to try to melt mammoths, essentially. Have no real other purpose in life, because they won't do too well against most. I guess they can melt like Skin Wolves, potentially, but most other Norscan troops that you're likely to see are not too good of a target for these guys. They either have too much armor or I guess against Berserks they'd be good. Now, my opponent here, Zach's army, does include Wulfric on a chariot, so definitely not a bad move. Now, one of the good sort of powerful options against the High Elves is chariots, because you need, the thing is, Norsca does not have great counters against Phoenix Guard. In the Norscan roster, you've basically got mammoths, you've got heroic chariots, and then you have marauder throwing axes to a lesser extent. Those are essentially your 3 good counters to Phoenix Guard. And so one of those, of course, making an appearance here, Wulfric. He does have his boat, Seafang. He's got Fight or Die, as well as Hunter of Champions. Great little debuff there. And Foe Seeker. Of course, just an absolute beast in melee. He's definitely no pushover. Even as Chariot, he can do a lot of damage. Alongside him, there is a Shaman Sorcerer of Fire who's got Fireball, as well as Cascading Fire Cloak and Kindled Flame. So some decent buffage, potential to counter snipe. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of Lore of Fire against the High Elves because they have quite a few fire resistant units. But certainly he can do a decent job sniping, say, Alariel or the Nobles. Or if he gets a nice side shot, perhaps, shooting up my poor Phoenix Guard. A Feral Mammoth does anchor the line here. Definitely going to be able to run amok among my Phoenix Guard, potentially, as long as they get debraced. But that's what we've got the archers for. Hopefully we'll be able to counter them. We do have a single unit of Norscan Ice Wolves here for harass. And then the front line is pretty cheap. It's a bunch of Marauders, Icehorn Marauders, Marauder Spears on the periphery. And there's a lot more tools on the flanks. So we do have 2 units of Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, good counter to Phoenix Guard, as we just discussed. Norscan Warhounds to harass the back line. Then we do have the Stalkers in the Mist, Vanguard deployed, Fimir with Regiment of Renown with Fear and Terror. Same thing on the other side, we've got the Maws of Savagery, Regiment of Renown, Skin Wolves with armor. So definitely some nasty stuff there. Now over here, you can see we are pushing out here. My Phoenix Guards sort of bracing for the charge, ready to deny these Norscans. Unfortunately over here, we're a little slow to pick off these Norscan Warhounds. So they are going to get into some of my archers. The nobles here charging in, engaging Wulfric, and they're going to spank this bad boy. He's definitely going to have a bad time. Over here, the Mammoth rampages, pushes into the Phoenix Guard. Unfortunately here, I countercharged, and this was a huge misplay. So if I left these guys braced, they would have probably taken a lot less damage. Instead, they lose 11 models on the charts. That Mammoth's so messed up, it just immediately just chips away like a 5th of these guys' strength and about a 3rd of their HP. And so it's going to be absolutely critical here to mow them down with the archers, because otherwise this is game over for this poor unit Phoenix Guard. That's what they're holding here, doing their very best. Lariel is in the pits here, helping out her Keepers of the Flame against these Marauders, and they're already winning pretty decisively. Sword of Avalorn does go down, but Wulfric is now being pursued pretty effectively by these angry nobles. You can see the Warhounds completely removed from play, and the archers are removing these Feral Mammoth. While the Phoenix Guard here does get the Sword of Avalorn, which will keep them tipped off, the most important part here is that we can't afford to have these guys lose their martial mastery. If that's gone, this game is probably gone. Now that said, my opponent has compromised my backline in large part. You can see the hounds here alongside the Miststalkers and these Marauders pursuing me inward. And I don't really have the tools to stop them, so what I'm going to do here is run away. I had a huge earlier misplay. I lost my silver helms, kind of threw them away against these hounds. I really should have kept them in a more defensive stance. But you can see my archers now just running away as the nobles wail on Wulfric, who's not quite able to escape. You can see the noble here doing quite a bit of damage. He does get a buff there to keep him in a fight, but definitely not looking too hot for him. In the meantime, the Phoenix Guard here just holding up and wrecking these troops. They did get hit by a Sea Fang and took a fireball, I do believe. But they're still around kicking. We can see the caster here on 19 kills. So definitely, he can get some value against Phoenix Guard for sure. But we are going to countercharge here, get in on the Miststalkers, and start tearing them to shreds. Because these guys are not meant to fight against the AP anti-large of the nobles, of the Phoenix Guard especially. They're going to start hurting pretty bad. In the meantime, L'Oreal is diving in here to help her boys against the Marauder Spearmen. And my archers here actually managed to fight their way clear. They are getting compensated or compromised a little bit by the Maws of Savagery. But by and large, we have managed to sort of keep them alive. And the main thing right now is that the Mammoth is gone. So the Mammoth's been removed from play. And with the Mammoth gone, there's, at this point, breaking this Phoenix Blob, even though Balance of Power is pretty handily in Zach's favor right now, it's going to be very difficult. There's two nobles here who still provide a mobile anti-large reserve. There is the Keepers of the Flame still very much around kicking whatever Wulfric tries to get in on them. And he's potent against Phoenix Guard on his chariot. But whenever he gets in there, the nobles are whacking his face off. You can see another Earthblood going down there, healing these boys up, keeping them tip-top shape. And if the Shaman Sorcerer gets caught out, he's getting smacked around like a little biatch by these very angry nobles. He's not going to be able to stick around. Getting peppered down by archers now. Now, Sea Fang does go down. My archers are breaking for sure, but there is this pocket of Phoenix Guard. My opponent does not have the ammo, really. These Marauder Horsemen here, not having the greatest time. The caster does, in fact, go down, gets cut down by the nobles. Wasn't able to escape. Wulfric trying to dive into the Phoenix Guard, but they have such monstrous stats. They're just sticking around. My Silver Helms are now rallying in the distance. They're going to be able to deploy here, go after these Miststalkers, destroy them. And the thing is, Marauders are just not good enough to destroy Phoenix Guard. And we still have a very healthy unit over here. We still have a reasonably healthy unit of Keepers of the Flame. Alariel still does have a Star of Avalorn. Our archers have actually come back online, being ignored by the Warhounds, who just didn't notice them. So my archers are just wailing on these Marauder Horsemen. And we've got a lot of heals. You can see another Star of Avalorn here going down on the Phoenix Guard, healing them pretty effectively. The Noble sitting in there with 100 champions, weakening him a little bit. But the other Noble here gets on top of Wulfric, gets a few swings in there, and Wulfric is very near dead. Down to 900 HP here. He's trying to swing around, just desperately trying to evade these nobles. And so you can see the Norsca Knights will here do dive in, but the thing is, the Phoenix Guard box is strong, and they are tanking for just tooth and nail, tanking this damage. The Maws of Savagery, you're going to have a bad time, because their armor doesn't count for much against the AP. The Phoenix Guard are getting magic damage because of Alariel. It's just a really brutal situation. Wulfric finally trying to mop up these archers, but he's very tired, so he's losing armor. And from that, and we are going to come in here with the nobles, looking to clean him up. And at this point, Balance of Power swing pretty decisively in my favor. We're able to mop up the Miststalkers over here. Phoenix Guard just dominating these guys. Over here, the archers are going to get wrecked. There's no saving them. But the noble is still around, and I kind of give up on those archers, pulling away. I don't want the noble fighting Wulfric amongst a bunch of hounds, believe it or not, because the hounds will distract the noble. But here in the pits, things are very decisively in my favor. The noble dives in there, kind of slapping around these Maws of Savagery, putting them in their place. They're forced into full retreat. And yeah, this is kind of game at this point. It's just waiting essentially for the tide to swing in my favor for good. Wulfric does attempt to make a last sort of desperate charge here to help out with the help of his hounds here. And the hounds are chipping away. Sure, the Wulfric and the hounds are definitely not terrible. They will do some damage against an anti-large specialist like the noble. But nonetheless, even with a Sea Fang going in, it's just not enough at this stage. Phoenix Guard is just too potent against these units. More archers are constantly coming back online, which is a big problem right now. I just had a lot of archers scattered all over the map who just come back. And yeah, they're not doing a lot, but they're a constant distraction and nuisance. And every few hits they get in, every model they take off is less ammo to kill the Phoenix Guard. There are also Silver Helms still around who are routing off the Horsemen. So definitely bad for Zach. At this point, it's going to be army losses for the Norskins. Pyrrhic victory for the High Elves. Now, obviously there was a bunch of mistakes made on both sides. Zach forgot some units. I charged out with my Phoenix Guard, which is a straight up stupid move. You want to keep your Phoenix Guard braced so that they don't lose their charge defense. There was definitely some sort of, unfortunately, the casters getting caught out by the nobles was definitely difficult. I pushed in with the Silver Helms prematurely. One unit of Silver Helms could have gotten way more value if they just played defensive, because Silver Helms destroy things like Norscan Warhounds, Ice Wolves, that sort of thing, and they just didn't get the opportunity there. That said, I do want to mention, Phoenix Guard Blob against Norsca is a surprisingly effective strat. Now, Mammoths destroy them, and you saw that in this game. This Mammoth literally just YOLO rushed down the pipe, and he got 25 kills, despite getting wailed on by 4 archers. That said, if you want to go for arguably Cancer's build, but you can go for a bit of a... You can bring, say, Illyrian Reavers, Silver Helms, Nobles, go for a very mobile build. Like, for example, if I cut these archers, replace them with 3 Illyrian Reavers, put Alariel on a horse, I could essentially have a mobile roving box of Phoenix Guard that can just sit tight, defend itself. It beats, like 90% of Norscan roster can't really deal with Phoenix Guard. There's only a handful of units throwing axes, both the foot hunters as well as the mounted hunter, marauder horsemen, and then mammoths. Maybe some breaths, but you're not likely to see an air force from Norsca. So like, you've basically got your options are mammoths, hunters, horsemen, and chariots. Those are the 4 counters to Phoenix Guard. So but Phoenix Guard can deal with everything else that the Norscans can throw at you. So as long as you've got counters to those 4 core issues that I just listed in some way, shape, or form, then you can handle basically everything else with just a Phoenix Guard blob. And I could blob much more aggressively, essentially, or much more greedily, potentially, because you plop Alariel down in the middle of 30 Phoenix Guard. You got that crazy physical resist. You just sit there like a potato, and you can do some damage. Now, this Hex build here definitely respected the possibility of Phoenix Guard. Mammoth, not a bad choice. Wolfric, not a bad choice on the Chariot, of course. I think part of the problem there was that he just wasn't able to swarm me fast enough. I do think another part of the problem was being a little impatient with the Feral Mammoth. A little more patience would have probably netted the Feral Mammoth a lot more value if he was able to shut down my backline first and then engage once the backline was compromised. Even if only temporarily, the Mammoth would have done so much more work and could have potentially swung that entire game, because the Phoenix Guard, while tanky and having done really well, would have... A Mammoth rampaging through him could have been enough to swing the tide there. Otherwise, obviously, you could sort of... I've done other alternate builds myself. You guys have sometimes seen them on my channel where you might bring multiple Mammoths. Definitely a very nasty combo for High Elves to deal with. It's definitely a bit of an iffy match, because there's a lot of things both sides can do that can abuse the other. High Elves can go super kitey. High Elves with Shadow Warriors and Illyrian Reavers, and it's very difficult for Norsca to counter that if you're not prepared. High Elves can also bring a Death Ball with Star Dragons and Sun Dragons and all that stuff. Phoenixes. Alariel mounted and to heal them, and then you've got a ground force of skirmishers, and it's very difficult for Norsca to counter that. There's a bit of give and take. You got to keep in mind that it's not like these are the only builds that exist. Similarly, I have to consider with Norsca that my opponent could go with a Fimir-based build, just a horde of Fimir with, say, Berserkers, which is still potentially devastating. You could go with a super mobile build, where you don't even maybe bother with Mammoths, or you might just bring, say, a few Chariots and focus largely on just cheap Marauders and Horsemen and Skinwolves and stuff like that. There's a lot of different variation on both sides, what they can do. But definitely... was a bit of a fun one here. Well played, to Zach be saying here. Was a lot of fun just to test some stuff out and mess around in customs. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it entertaining. If you have comments, critique, questions, don't hesitate to put them down below, and I'll respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.